call in live on Facebook. My name is Ryan Carpenter, and I so very proudly serve as your superintendent for the great Estacada schools. Hey, I know there's a lot going on tonight. The springtime is always busy, and the weather is getting nice again. So I just want to thank you for tuning in to learn about some of the hot topics and big things going on inside your school district. And we have a great night tonight. There's a lot of great things to share, as well as a lot of big topics to discuss, such as the upcoming budget. And we've got some great guests for that this evening to help me better communicate your taxpayer dollars and how it supports the daily learning environment of your child and this community's children each and every single day. I also hope that you had a great and restful May break. May break is a very innovative thing that we, the Estacada School District, do that really sets us apart from many other traditional school districts. Why do we have May break, you might be asking? That's actually a very good question, and I want to share with you why we've made the determination to take the second or third, depending on the calendar, week off in the month of May. And it's for two very specific reasons. The first reason is, as we look at data, remember the Estacada School District makes decisions, we're data-driven, and we make decisions based on what the data is telling us so that we can best support our students and make sure that we have a talented employee field in order to be able to best serve your kids in our community each and every single day and each and every single year. The reason for May break is because we looked at the data, and last week, through history, is the number one week when our employees either take vacation days or call in sick or miss work for various legitimate reasons. And so we made the determination that instead of having your child in front of a substitute or losing momentum in the weekly lesson plans of that particular week, we made the determination to take that week off so that our employees are well rested, refreshed. It's the highest time of fatigue in the school year. If you're a public educator, you understand that this is the grind right now. It's the toughest time where fatigue really sets in. We wanted to make sure that our faculty and our employees were refreshed in order to finish the school year strong. So that is one reason why we chose to do May break, because we wanted to make sure that your kid was in front of a highly qualified, talented teacher on a more regular basis. But the second reason, believe it or not, is this is the second week of the year where students miss the most school, be that a late planned vacation, family situations that come up, or that spring sickness, which did hit our school district over the last couple of weeks. Do you know what the number one week of student absences is? I'll pause for a second to have you think about it. Any guesses? What is the most missed week in Estacada schools during the school year? Any guesses? Well, the answer is the first week of deer season. Hunting season is very important to our community, and so that hunting deer season week is when we typically have the lowest attendance rate in the school district, but last week is the second highest absenteeism of students. And so looking at both of those data metrics, we made the determination innovatively to say, instead of having school where a lot of the kids are gone and a lot of the adults are gone, we took that week off. And I hope that you had the opportunity to enjoy that, spend some great family time together. One of the things I get thanked regularly about May break is the vacation airfare is considerably cheaper, hotels are considerably cheaper, and opportunities to do different things as a family when it's not that spring break rush really is quite tremendous. I also know a lot of families work, and sometimes the May break can be an inconvenience for families, and I do understand that, but I know that so many kids are involved in so many activities in our community, which gives kids opportunities to just enjoy. But at the end of the day, May break is most important for us because in the next 5 weeks, we can guarantee that we're going to finish this school year strong. And you might remember back in the day when you were in school or another traditional school district, after The state testing, and after all those things, is when teachers typically have celebrations and parties, pop in the movie, not the Estacada School District. We work hard all the way to the end, and this break guarantees that our teachers have the stamina, the strength, and are rested to finish the school year just as strong as when we started this year. So May Break has been awesome. I hope that you heard our full story of why we do May Break, and I'm able to count on you to be able to share with others why we do May Break and how the data has told us that this is the right spot for us to do that. There's a lot of other great things happening inside the Estacada School District that I'm excited to share with you, as we always want to harvest our wins. I want to say a big congratulations to our high school choir program. Our music program, as you know, is one of the best in the state. And once again, the Estacada High School Choir finished second in the entire state of Oregon. This is their second best finish. They finished in second in 2024 as well, but we're just so proud of them. We know that the arts are so important to this community, and Rendell Frunk and the team that supports the music program, we're just so blessed and lucky to have such great people leading Estacada music, and I'm so excited to see our kids continue to compete and thrive in the music industry and section. We also had a very successful career technical education night the week before May Break. We had a tremendous turnout of community members and business owners looking to work with and partner in our career technical education programs. The Estacada School District offers more career technical education opportunities really than any other school district our size. We're very fortunate to give kids so many opportunities to be exposed to different workplace fields, and we're just really proud of our opportunities to give that to kids. I'm also excited to announce, and we've announced this before, but in case you haven't heard, next year we're adding a new career technical education program in addition to the other four that we have, and that is the forestry program. We have seen tremendous excitement and enthusiasm from the logging community, the timber community, the natural resource community, the mass timber businesses that are coming through Estacada, and we're just very excited to offer that next year. As you know, Estacada is an old logging town, and I'm so proud to be able to report to our community that the game has changed in the natural resources industries, and we're trying our best to equip our students who are interested in that pathway to have a leg up or a competitive advantage as we move them beyond our high school walls. I also need to say a big congratulations to the middle school track program. The middle school girls track team finished first place in the region just a couple of weeks ago as well. Did you know that the Estacada School District does have middle school sports, and track has become tremendously popular amongst our middle school students? We had 107 students participate in track this year. Just such a victory for us to give our kids a safe and awesome after-school opportunity, and for them to engage in safe and exercise and learn the skills of fundamentals of being a great athlete. And so congratulations to our middle school track program and all of the people who help support that as well. Spring sports are going very well for us, and the majority of our high school spring sports teams have qualified for the playoffs. And so yet again, the Estacada School District is on the rise. And regardless of if it's in the music room, in the theater, and on the athletic fields, Estacada Schools is thriving. And that's what we want to be. That's what we've been working hard to build and support over the last 7 years, is we want to be a true competitor in the state, and we want to be seen as a powerhouse in both athletics, arts, and the academics. And so I'm going to finish with academics, and all I can say at this point is our students are taking the SBAC state testing scores right now, and things are looking very positive. I'm so pleased to see the hard work that our teachers have done in the classroom, that our administration has supported, and the early unofficial data is reporting back to us that we are just really thriving right now when it comes to academic success. And I just want to thank the families who had their children participate in state testing, we are being so rewarded by high achievement of the kids who took the test. And so if you're a family that supported this test, supported your kids in taking the test, we're grateful for that, because that's how we compare ourselves to other schools around the state, as well as how we compare ourselves to schools around the country. And so, this is a snapshot glance of how our kids are doing in comparison to others. And right now, Estacada is looking better than it ever has before. And I'm excited when the official numbers come out closer to October to be able to share that with our community. But expect some pretty cool things. And so thank you for allowing your kids to participate in that, so we can compare ourselves to others to make sure we're doing our job, just like you're counting on us to do. I want to introduce a guest that we have today, which I'm very excited for. And I want to introduce Scott Pillar. Scott is our business manager, or chief financial officer for the Estacada School District. This is his first year inside the Estacada School District, but comes to us with some tremendous experience in many different school districts around the state. I've got to say, in my 8 years of being a superintendent, we have one of the most talented people that we've collected to make sure we're being responsible with taxpayer money. So first of all, I want to say a welcome to Scott and let you say something, and then I want you to get to know Scott a little bit better. So we're going to play a quick game before we go into some of our other stuff. So Scott, welcome, and say hello to the people.
Great, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. We're going to talk a little bit about budget tonight. So I'm excited to present a fairly dry topic, and hopefully it elicits a few questions, and we'll be able to take those questions either midway through or toward the end. So thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And school finance is critical. While he says it's a dry topic, I know you care deeply about where your tax dollars go. And I know that you care a lot and have opinions about what we do with this money. And so to have Scott here tonight and to allow you to ask financial questions about your tax dollars is very important to us. And we want to be transparent. And so here we are tonight. Okay, Scott, so I'm going to fire off a lightning round of questions. You only get to answer these questions in one word.
One word.
I'm going to give you two options, and you've got to pick the one option. So first of all, Scott, football or soccer?
Football.
Okay. Beef or fish?
Beef.
Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets?
Excel.
The movie Elf or the movie The Grinch?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with Elf.
Okay, you can tell a lot by a person if they like either Elf or Grinch. I'm an Elf guy myself. Ranch dressing or vinaigrette?
Oh, no question. Ranch.
Okay. Sunshine or snow?
Sunshine.
Hunting or fishing?
Hunting.
Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving.
Okay, and then the most important question, the Cascade School District or the Estacada School District?
Oh, no question at all. Estacada all
Yeah,
the way.
go Rangers. Absolutely. Well, we're very lucky to have Scott, and hopefully you got a chance to get to know our business manager a little bit better. You know, as you know, business managers are really focused on the finances and the daily spending and earnings and tax collection and all of the above. So they don't get a lot of opportunities to be in the public. And so, one, I wanted you to know our CFO a little bit better, and I'm excited for him and I to answer some of your big budget questions as we go through the process. As you know, especially people who are veterans in our Facebook Live, this is the time to ask the questions. We want to be able to answer them. So if you've got some pressing questions, some hot topics that you want some answers to, I strongly recommend you start putting those things in and start typing those questions. We have Maggie Kelly here, who's our district communications director. She'll be monitoring the chat and repeating those questions. We care a lot about each question. We don't skip questions. Sometimes we lump the same questions together and ask them as one. But if you have a pressing question, please feel free to participate and ask those questions, and we'll try our best to answer them. So the two hot topics that I want to talk about tonight is really you took a survey about your satisfaction and experience with the Estacada School District, and I wanted to roll out and share with you what the results of that are. We also surveyed our students because student satisfaction means a great deal to us as well, as we want all kids to have a great experience daily inside our school district, and we're committed to improving that based on that feedback. And then lastly, I just want to share with you where we're at when it comes to hiring our employees. We want to make sure Estacada Schools is a best place to work atmosphere, culture, and experience as people invest their professional lives into working with your kids each and every single day. So as you can see on this slide here, I'll start with employees. Our employees scored the Estacada School District and working at the Estacada School District a 4.16 out of 5. This is fantastic. Anything that is 4 stars or better means that the employees here are indicating that this is a healthy culture and a great place to work, and we're very proud of that. That is down 0.01 from a year ago last year at 4.17. But if you think about the context of public education, what you see on the news, the turmoil of budget shortfalls in so many other school districts, the fact that we're able to hold our ground right now is really quite impressive. And so for our employees to see us as over 4.1 stars, almost 4.2 stars out of 5, should tell you that the culture and the environment and the talent that we're collecting into the school district is really going quite well. I'm also excited to share that our students scored their daily experience in our school district a 3.97 out of 5. The good news is that score has grown since this time 12 months ago last year, but we're up now by 0.03, and we hope to continue seeing that improve as we continue to make changes based on student voice to improve that experience. So we're on the right trajectory, and things are getting better each and every single day in our great school district. And then lastly, your voice. What do parents think about sending their kids to the Estacada School District and their experience interacting with your school district? We scored a 4.08 out of 5. This is the highest score that we have ever scored in the history of this survey, and we are so very proud of that, and the participation was excellent. And so if you're one of the people who took the time to fill out that survey, maybe you have multiple kids at multiple schools and you filled that out multiple times based on what school your child goes to, I'm just very grateful for your voice and for your feedback. A 4.08 is improvement by 0.16 12 months ago from last year. It was a 3.91. And so I just want to thank you for recognizing the hard work and intentional work that our staff, our building leaders, our district office team have poured in to improving our service excellence in the experience and how we treat our parents, how we treat our community, and how we work each and every single day with love for the kids who come into our school district. We're very proud of that, and I just wanted also to say that it's important for you to see that overarching number, because maybe you're like me and you hear a lot of people who have differing opinions or negative experiences. I certainly get a lot of that too. Those are typically the people that I work with in my job is to work through some of the hard things and the complex things. But at the end of the day, the Estacada School District and its families are satisfied and pleased with the daily offerings that we're providing each and every single day. And I just want to thank you so much for that feedback. And when you think about the context of this score and you look at where public education is at, both nationally and in the state of Oregon, this is an even more tremendous victory for us, as there's a lot of opportunities with school choice. You look at other school districts, which Scott's going to talk about a little bit later, and how schools are losing enrollment because school districts have lost the trust and the faith of local families in their school districts. This score tells me that Estacada Schools is on the right track, and parents are continuing to choose to send their students to our great school district. So this is a big win for us, and I'm really excited to share that with you, and just pumped about the feedback that you're giving us to tell us we're doing great work, and I greatly appreciate that. So what are students telling us? Just really quickly, some of the top three. I enjoy specials or electives. That scored a 4.3. I believe my learning is important at my school. That scored a 4.23. And I believe my principal is a good leader at 4.22. These are tremendous things to be recognized for. And these are the top three things that our students said were the best out of all of it. 2 opportunities for us to be able to improve. I like going to my school each day, scored a 3.52. And I feel students are nice or show respect to each other at 3.53. And we do have some work to do there, but we've been doing tremendous intentional work around bullying and making sure students are treating each other with respect in a welcoming environment. And actually this 3.53 is up 0.2. It was a 3.3 a year ago. And so while it's not where we want it to be yet, I do need to note that improvement is noted, and the strategies that we're doing is having a positive impact. So that's fantastic. What are parents telling us? Here's the top 3 scores from the Parent Satisfaction Survey. I am treated with respect at this school, scored a 4.36, and that means a lot to us. I feel comfortable approaching school administration at 4.25. And I believe my child's learning is a high priority at this school at 4.21. Great things to get to hear from you, and thank you for the recognition of some of the most important aspects of working with parents and families and the school district. There are 2 opportunities for us to improve. I received positive phone calls, emails, or notes about my child from the school, scored a 3.8, and I believe school rules are enforced consistently at the school, a 3.84. Although again, even though 3.84 is our second lowest score, we saw tremendous growth in this score from last year as well. So the things we're doing is showing improvement, and I'm proud of that, with still work to go, but very proud of that. Now I'm going to move to the next topic, and if you have a kid that is riding an e-bike in town, please put everything else down and listen to this loud and clear. Some of you may have heard me say earlier in October or November, I can't remember what Facebook Live it was, but we need to have students stop riding their e-bikes and their e-scooters from your house to the school. And here's why. I just want to remind people. First of all, if they are under 16 years old, it's illegal. Like, they're not legally allowed to ride an e-bike or an e-scooter. You must be 16 years old to be on one. You might say, well, Dr. Carpenter, what if they're wearing a helmet? That's awesome that they're wearing a helmet, but it's still illegal because they're not 16 years old. We've had some tremendous problems with kids on e-scooters and e-bikes around our school campus. Let me just share with you a few stories. You may have heard just a couple of weeks ago, one of our students was going down the very steep 4th Street hill, like by the Cazadero neighborhoods, and they had a very horrific accident causing considerable damage, and they ended up getting life-flighted to a very traumatic hospital who supports those types of traumas. A very bad experience, and we're still, our hearts are with that family, and we're glad to see the recovery going in the way that it's going. But that's one example. We had a student hit an old lady walking down the sidewalk and knocking her over. We've had a student on an e-bike going from the sidewalk to the street, to the sidewalk to the street, and ended up running into a side view mirror of a car who was stopped at the stop sign right across from the middle school, causing damage there. I was telling you about our middle school track meet, which had 107 of our kids and 12 other schools participating in a very big track meet, and we had a kid with their e-scooter literally ride their bike across the track, through the middle of the track football field, and on through the back 20 acres into the neighborhood. It required the whole track meet to stop. It was a really bad look for Estacada and our community, as we had visitors and guests and other students here, and it was just a really big show of disrespect. We've had a lot of people peeling out in our grass and all of the above, and while this might make me sound old and grumpy, I gotta tell you that it's a problem for our school district and for the safety of our kids. And so I need to tell you a couple of things that are going to happen from this point forward. I thought I gave a very friendly and kind warning and educational process earlier in the year, but we continue to have these concerns. And so I need to let you know that starting tomorrow, I'm meeting with the chief of police in Estacada. I'm meeting with our school resource officer, and we are going to begin citing and giving tickets to students who are illegally riding e-bikes and e-scooters. And so if you happen to be a parent of one of the biker gangs of kids that are riding around all over the place, this is my final friendly warning that that's going to happen. Also, we're looking at our laws and policies about what if we find kids even after school hours that are riding their e-bikes on our campuses or ripping around the track, which we just paid a lot of money, your money, to build a brand new track, and those e-bikes damage the track. We're looking at what a no trespass might look like for our own students to not be on campus when the school day is out, because we can't trust them to be responsible and safe on our campuses when adults aren't around. If you have questions on that, I know there's probably some of you who are like, thank you. I've seen this problem, and it really is, and I appreciate you addressing it. I hear you loud and clear, and there might be some people out there saying, man, give them a break. They're just kids. Let them ride their bikes and have fun. We've tried that, and it's not working. So we need to take a little more action, but that responsibility is not just mine alone. That's a community responsibility, and we need to be educating our kids on what safe looks like, what the law looks like, and so we're going to need to enhance our enforcement in that process. So that's my e-bikes talk and conversation, and now we're going to move to what I'm sure all of you are here for today. But Maggie, I might pause just for a second because before we get into the budget, there might be some questions coming along, and so let's pause quickly for those questions.
Yeah, we do have some questions, Superintendent Carpenter, so let's get to it. Our first question is from Sunny, who wants to know, did we finalize the school merge?
Did we finalize the school
I'm assuming
merch?
that means reconfiguration.
Oh, merge. Got it. Not merchandise like t-shirts. My fault. Yes, the reconfiguration is completely dialed in. All employees have been notified of what school they're going to be at next year. And again, for those of you who might be new to our community, next year Rivermill Elementary will be a kindergarten through 2nd grade school, and Clackamas River will be a 3rd through 5th grade school. We know that there are moving pains and change pains that come with this, but I'm telling you, as we've worked through the logistics, I'm quite excited about it, and I think you will be too once we get into the role of this. We've been working with parent committees on parent pickup and school bus routes. I think a lot of people who might be experiencing anxiety about their kid maybe at Clackamas River currently, who is moving to Rivermill. I'm happy to share that a lot of our teachers at Clackamas River will also be moving to Rivermill, and so your child may even have the same teacher or no teachers and other employees who are a part of that, as well as their peer group and people who are moving over as well. So It's a done deal. We've notified everyone. The next big step for us is moving everything, which is going to be a tremendous logistical feat. But as soon as school is out is when that moving process goes. We're trying our best to not make the reconfiguration a distraction for our teachers and our students this year. We want to finish the academic year strong, and so we won't be boxing anything up or having our kids box anything up to prepare for the move. We want to teach all the way to the last minute that bell rings, and then as soon as everyone's out for summer, we'll begin that moving process. And we will be ready to go, and we're going to do a great job as we introduce new concepts in all of our buildings. So I hope that answers that question. And if there's follow-up questions or something like that, I'd be happy to answer that. But I'm feeling really confident about where we're at in this process.
Our next question is, are there any plans to put the food pantry back into the schools for families in the district?
Unfortunately, no, is the answer to that. We were very much hoping to do so, and our plan was to do that. Starting next year, we took a break this year to kind of see what the school configurations were going to look like in our capacity. But believe it or not, the Estacada School District continues to grow. And while we looked at some different places to put them, unfortunately, just about all of our available spaces will be filled with classrooms next year. We do see Clackamas River being considerably more full than it is this year. We see River Mill still being full with our kindergarten, first and second grade classes. Our middle school is going to be gigantic next year, and all of its places are going to be full of capacity. And our high school has a little bit of capacity, but one of the announcements that we haven't made yet, and I'll make that publicly now, is we're going to be bringing back our DCLA students. That's our alternative options program for students who want to learn at their own pace or just learn in an alternative setting. We have a place downtown where they've been for the last 2 years. They're going to be coming back up to the high school campus proper, and so that alleviates some of the space as well. And so while the Estacada School District won't be offering the food bank, Estacada has a great food bank, and we're going to continue to partner with them. As we look at our budget stuff, which Scott will be talking with you about very quickly, we really needed to reduce our scope and footprint to the things that the taxpayers charge us with, and that's teaching all kids at high levels and welcoming all students with the opportunities to learn at high levels. And so we're going to stay focused on that. And while the food bank was something that was extraordinary, and we had some impressive people really volunteering and spearheading that process, we're going to put that back into the hands and responsibility of the Oregon Food Bank, but we will continue to support them however we can.
Our next question is, are there any plans to hire a social worker for the district?
That's another great question. And right now we're working through those processes. Jill Bennett, who's our Director of Student Services, that decision falls entirely around her and what the staffing models look like. And that's a thing that we're exploring right now. We have not made a decision on that. We're looking at the data, we're looking at the families we've served, and we're looking at our opportunities to continue to educate our kids in the ways that we think is most impactful. And if that's a social worker, then that's a social worker. If it's not, it's not. But that's a decision we'll probably make closer to the summertime.
Next question is, will there be cohorts at all moving through schools? They're thinking about the new configuration and worrying that their kid could have a totally new group of kids in their class every year, and worry about the impact on that sense of community, and wonder if cohorts or something similar has been proposed.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be kind of by nature cohorts established because whole grade groups are going to be moving with. It's without a doubt that, every year, kids could possibly be with a new group of students just based on what teacher they're assigned to and what that class looks like. I actually think the sense of community is going to be even better than it is right now. And we have great community right right now. But I'm actually more excited to think that all third graders are going to be in one building together, and all first graders are going to be in one building together. And that's going to create a very much stronger sense of community as kids move through the process together. Data would show that the biggest social anxieties and the biggest behavioral problems we have is when Rivermill and Clackamas River merge together in the 6th grade or 7th grade back in the past. And that merger actually has created quite a bit of anxiety for parents and kids. And it's when we've seen some of the greatest behavioral outbursts, as there's, as you know, a natural pecking order that begins inside that process. And so our ability to keep the whole cohorts of grade levels together from the beginning, I actually think will decrease some of that merger later on in the academic career, ultimately making the middle school's culture stronger over the next few years, and of course the high school's culture stronger once these students reach that level. So I'm feeling pretty good at this point about the groups of people being together. We have some tremendous teachers, some tremendous principals and vice principals, and tremendous support staff where culture is very much a high priority for them. The assemblies, some of the rites of passages like the sports challenge and those things will still remain so that we're still building a school culture in any school that a child is at.
The next question, I think we're going to put a pin in because I think we're getting to it later on, but Marissa wants to know, are we at risk of staff cuts because of budget issues like other districts in our area? So that is our next topic. Stay tuned on that. But I want to get to some more questions and then we can circle back to that one after we discuss budget. Our next question from Stephanie, if you could have some clarity, you mentioned enforcing the e-bike thing.
Yep.
And she wants to know, she thought that if things happen off school property, the school couldn't take action because that's what she's been told about bullying and harassment.
Yeah.
Can we enforce e-scooters but not bullying?
Yeah.
How does that work?
We cannot enforce e-scooters off of our school campus. You're correct about that. Just like what happens at home, we can't enforce what happens at home. And so my fault if I miscommunicated. Any kid on any e-scooter anywhere could possibly lead to school consequences. I'm only talking about when kids are on school campus is when we can do that. And if it's at 8 o'clock at night, you're correct. The school hours aren't in play, but they're still on the school's campus. And so while we may not be able to suspend or put someone in detention or, that kind of a thing because it's not within the school hours, you're correct about that, but it's still our property and it's still our campus. And so we do have other options or tools in our tool belt to try to curb or mitigate that behavior. No different than if a kid came onto school campus at midnight and graffitied the side of the building. One, that's against the law, and two, that's a problem for us that we would have to deal with because of the damage or safety threats that were created. And so if a kid is on campus doing something illegal, we have the right and opportunity to enforce that while they're on campus. If they're at big gyms or down at the Wade Creek Park, that's out of our jurisdiction and we have nothing to do with that. But who does have jurisdiction with that is the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department. And they too are going to start cracking down on kids under the age of 16 who are on those bikes illegally. And so I'm just trying to communicate that so that our community has a heads up.
Our next question from Kelsey, do we have any updates on busing and transportation for next school year?
Yes, lots of things with busing and transportation. I think that we're going to roll that out in a more organized fashion. I definitely don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. Our school times have been publicly released, and so you should be able to know on our website when our start times and our stop times are going to be, so you know when to drop off and pick up your kids. We'll begin like what the routes look like in the summertime, and we typically communicate bus routes in August. And again, as you know, the Estacada School District is the largest school district in Clackamas County at 750 square miles. And so running our great yellow buses with a great transportation team is a true logistical challenge, and we need the time to build out what those routes look like based on bus capacity, the amount of time. We really want to try to keep kids on the bus an hour or less, which is a challenge for us, especially for people who live in the George community or in the Barton community or some of the areas up by the Ripplebrook Ranger Station, up the Clackamas River Highway. And so those are big challenges that do take time, and we're just getting started in building that process. We do have a great parent pickup plan that is nearly finalized, and I think you can see in the next couple of weeks what those updates look like, especially for parents who are planning to pick up multiple kids at multiple schools. Thanks for that question.
Our next question is, how has the reconfiguration of elementary schools increased room in the district, since that is the problem it's intended to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rivermill Elementary School has 540 kids in it right now. We're literally bursting at the seams. We're a classroom away from teaching kids underneath an oak tree, is how bad it is right now. Our ability to disperse kids differently allows Rivermill to be at capacity and Clackamas River to be also at capacity. Right now, Clackamas River is under capacity, and so our ability to kind of shuffle the deck, for lack of a better word, and create these school campuses really mitigates Rivermill Elementary School right now is bigger than Estacada High School in terms of students. And so our ability to move them, some of them to Clackamas River, really kind of evens things out. So this move is not a permanent move. We have growth and capacity problems. We need to continue to talk to our community about how we're going to address growth and capacity problems. But because we were unsuccessful in a bond and we were unsuccessful in our community investing more money into our school district, we had to take these matters into our own hands. And the only solution we had when it came to capacity was to just kind of reshuffle the buildings in which kids are learning. But we probably bought us 2 or 3 more years, honestly, and then we're going to be right back in the same spot we were before.
Yeah, and the discrepancy between Rivermill and Clackamas River is a 150 kid difference. So
Yes.
it's pretty big, and it's giving those students an unequal opportunity.
Yeah.
So this will help address that. Our next question also around the reconfiguration. Oh, they're wondering if the person who initially asked about the merge was wondering if there will be further reconfiguration, like the 7th and 8th graders moving to the high school, which we initially discussed.
Yep, that's still on the table, and we took a year to better understand the data. And part of our issue, and I'm glad we did pause in that, because we saw a tremendous influx of 4th, 5th, and 6th grade kids and families moving into our community. And so I will be honest and vulnerable. One of the things that worries me about moving the 7th and 8th graders up to the high school has capacity for 1,000 kids. If we were to move the 7th and 8th graders to the high school, and of course they'd be in a separate spot in the high school, not with Estacada High School, but making the high school building a 7th through 12th grade building, if we did that today, there would be 912 kids in the Estacada High School building, giving us very little room for growth in that area. And so the one thing I don't want to do is yo-yo our community. And so as of right now, that plan is on pause. There's some opportunities and options if we were required to do that, to move in that direction. But we're going to take another year to study what that looks like and how we can support that. But Estacada Middle School next year will be full. There is no doubt about that. But if we move them to the high school the year after, we would have very little growth opportunities or room at Estacada High School. So the problem is real. We're trying our best to solve it without disrupting too many things. I feel pretty confident that the K235 building is going to buy us some time. And I also think it's going to be great. But at the same time, what we're working on is not a long-term strategy. It's a right-now strategy to serve and support our kids the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to the opportunity to see how reconfiguration at the elementary level goes, see how our enrollment numbers come in, and as always, we will communicate to our family with plenty of advance notice if we make any further changes, just because we know that's important to families. That is all of our questions at this time, so we can get started on our budget conversation, but keep the questions coming. We'll answer more at the end.
Okay, very good. Well, then I'm going to pass it over to Scott Pillar, and I'm excited. I hope you are as well. One of the great questions was, are we having budget issues and shortfalls? And I'll just do a quick spoiler alert that if you look at Portland Public and Salem Kaiser and Eugene and some of the other catastrophic stories you're hearing in the news, Estacada is far, far better than that. And so I'll let Scott take it from there. We still have challenges though, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. We do have challenges. We're not immune to that. Most of the districts in the state of Oregon now are in a challenging spot. And the biggest reason for that is the disconnect between the growth in the amount of revenue we receive. Our largest revenue stream is the state school fund. And that goes up almost every year for the most part. And that money comes from income taxes and property taxes that go to the state and then they come back to us. And so that amount of money next year is going up about 4.5%, 5%. For us, it's a little bit higher because we're predicting a bit of growth in our student body enrollment. It's all tied to growth. And however, our cost increases are going up more than that 4, 5, 6, 7%. So and we'll get into that here in a little bit. First of all, when we start talking about budgets, our budget is our financial plan for next year. And the real true health of a budget is, from a budget standpoint, is where you start the budget. And where you start a budget every year is where you ended it the current year. And so what I'd like to do is highlight to show that we are ending this year in the black. We're projecting an ending fund balance of about 9.2%, 9.19% to be exact. And that roughly indicates out to about $4.8 million. Now that may seem like a lot of money, but for a district our size, the percentage point should be in anywhere between 8 to 11, maybe even 12%. The reasoning is because we have a lot of buildings, for instance, and roofs, any kind of breakdowns and boilers, those types of things. While we do budget for some maintenance, in an emergency situation, that fallback of 10, 11, 12% would be a very nice thing to have, and it allows us to maintain that continuity of our budget moving forward. But however, I can say without hesitation that we're going to do pretty well this year. We're going to finish up in the 9-10% range. I'm very happy with that number. And that starts our beginning fund balance next year, right? So that ending fund balance is our third largest revenue source behind property taxes and state school fund support. So subsequently, if that is a strong number, that makes budgeting a lot easier, and it makes it a nice, smooth glide plan, which is what we're thinking about. We always want to kind of plan budgets, not just next year, 3 years out, 5 years out, what's going to happen down the road. And we're going to talk a little bit about what happens if you don't do that. As Superintendent Carpenter mentioned, our peers are cutting. I think this Portland Public School District is cutting enough in their school district next year's budget to fund our entire general fund budget. So it's a significant amount, and many districts, particularly the larger districts, are making significant cuts with significant layoffs. One of the reasons why this is happening is because of that disconnect in terms of costs. Now, 83, 84, 85% of our operating budget is salaries and benefits for our employees. Education by nature is a people-centric business. So in order for us to do a very good job of educating your students, we have to have the best and the brightest teachers available to do that. And that's a people-centric business. And so subsequently, we have to pay very close attention to the type and the number of our staff and where they're allocated. That's the number one thing that we promote when we're talking about budget control. If you look nationally on this graph, one of the things that we are seeing nationally is that the amount of staff growth in terms of numbers of staff serving our students is growing significantly more than the number of students that we teach. This happens in districts not only nationwide, as this graph shows, but also Oregon-wide too. We'll talk a little bit more about that and some specific districts that are very close to us. Why, you may ask, that is the case? Is that budget creep that's happening? Well, I don't think so. Really, our students today are a lot different than they were 30 years ago. They have higher socio-emotional needs. They have a tremendous amount of specialized education needs. Our SPED population is growing significantly. And quite frankly, our world is becoming more complex. And so our teachers, we're putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of needs from our teachers to really deliver a high quality education to our students. And quite frankly, that takes time and money. So that nationwide growth isn't too out of line, in my opinion, but it is significant when you talk about the growth, because the pay and the benefits that we have to pay our teachers and support staff are pretty significant. Now, when we look at the state of Oregon here on this chart, you will see obviously for about 25, 30 years there, we're looking at pretty flat and very close ties between our enrollment growth and our educator growth, or in staff growth. But then right around 14 or 15, you see a disconnect again. And again, a lot of that is leftover COVID problems and challenges that we had during that time. There was an emphasis on really strong socio-emotional needs being met from our staffing requirements, and we had a lot of federal money that many districts put toward staff people in order to meet those needs for our students. And that has kind of given us a situation, a disconnect here, where we see a lot of staff versus a slight enrollment drop. If we look at Portland Public, you can see a significant jump there in their staffing relative to enrollment growth. Their enrollment is decreasing. You see about a 19% decrease in enrollment for them. Beaverton is the same situation. These are obviously all very large districts. North Clackamas, just to the west of us, is bumping into that same issue. Our neighbor Molalla down the way is the same type of situation. Again, they're also dropping in students. And then finally, let's look at Estacada. Estacada is pretty amazing, and it's actually the outlier here. You look at, we have a 38% enrollment growth in the last 25 years and a 32% staffing growth. That's absolutely amazing. I believe that we're probably one of the only districts, and one of the very few districts that I'm aware of any size, 3A, 4A districts that really can throw those numbers out. That's really, truly amazing. And it says a lot about our staff, really, because we have the same needs from our students as other districts do, but our staff are doing a lot. They're doing some incredible work with your students, and we are able, as Dr. Carpenter mentioned earlier, able to provide some of those specialized classes like forestry and those types of things that other districts just aren't able to do. And honestly, I think it's really good financial management, not by me, I'm fairly new here to the district, but people before myself and the staff here at Estacada has done a wonderful job of keeping a close watch on those staff numbers to make sure that we're not going into budget creep. And that's one of the main reasons why we're not in a situation that other districts around us are. Let's look at our situation for our budget next year, and this is just down the road. We predict our expenditures to grow up about 6.7%, which is a pretty sizable number. A lot of that is driven, as I mentioned, by salaries and benefit costs. But we also have health insurance and PERS that bump into that. But also, as all of those inflationary pressures that you're feeling in your pocketbook, we feel as a district as well. I mean, we pay electricity and water. We've seen a 28% increase in our electric bill in the last couple of years. I mean, it's pretty significant. And when you're spending thousands a month in electricity, that's some real numbers. So we're impacted as much as you are in terms of how much we have to increase our spending in order to just meet the basic student, same thing that we did last year. As I mentioned earlier, our revenue picture is growing, and we predict a revenue increase of about 3.3% 4%. And that's in aggregate, it's in all funds. I won't go into all that detail. But essentially, we're seeing about a 7% increase in the state school fund. Again, that has to do with enrollment, so we're predicting a small, slight enrollment gain next year. But also our property taxes, typically a flat amount of growth in our property taxes is about 3%. We're not seeing a tremendous amount of growth from that new development yet. I think we've seen that has slowed down a bit. We're doing site planning and those types of things. There's some site prep that's happening. I notice when I drive around in the neighborhoods and such, but we don't have a lot of new houses being built in construction-wise, and that has a lot to do with the national economy. And then finally, our federal sources, as many of you have heard, are declining, and some of our other revenue sources in terms of grants and those types of things are relatively flat. So essentially, the takeaway from this is our costs are growing about twice as much as our revenue is. And so every district that when is faced with that type of disconnect means that we're going to have to adjust. And this next slide, that 3.3% gap between the amount of money that we're expending or planning to expend and the amount of money that we're having coming in, that is our gap. And we needed to close that gap. And that gap for us equates to about 1.9, almost $2 million. And so we started this process with a project-based budgeting situation that we started probably in February, I think. Mm-hmm. And we met with all the leaders and we talked about what's working, what's most important to our district, what's most important to kids, how are we doing the things the best way that we can with the money that is entrusted to us by you, the taxpayers, to do really the job that we're entrusted to do, which is educate kids. And so subsequently, after a lot of talks with that, we had made some very targeted, very specific cuts in some programs. And we did have to cut about 4.0 FTE out of next year's budget, which is a fairly small amount. It's regrettable that we even had to do that. We did reduce a lot of positions through attrition, however. So that 4.0 FTE is really, it's a little bit bigger than that, only because some of the positions that we had, some grants had ended and we decided not to refill those positions. Every district has people that move on, they retire, they move to different districts, they do other things. And so there are some positions that we are just not going to fill next year.
Scott, do you mind clarifying what is 4.0 FTE for those sitting at home that might not speak education speak?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in numbers, so if I ever do that, thanks for catching that. FTE is what's called a full-time equivalent, and so for us, that's a 40-hour person, be a person who's a teacher, an administrator, a paraprofessional, custodial staff, any of those staff. If you're a full-time person here, that's a 1.0 FTE. Now, we count them in FTEs, and so if two people that were half-time lost their position, that would be one FTE that would be eliminated in that situation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So oftentimes we're asked, how did we choose to make the cuts that we did? And essentially, the focus here has been always fund the classroom first. That's the number one goal. That's what we exist to do, is to educate students. So we wanted to make sure that the classrooms, the traditional K-12 experience, was funded first. And then our second value was really investing in the systems that strengthen that instruction. And when you think about investing in systems that strengthen instruction, we're talking about innovative and tested curriculum methods, curriculum materials, delivery methods, those types of things. And then finally, the third area is operational efficiency and long-term stability. As I mentioned earlier, the best budget practices are not building a budget just for next year, but building for 3 years out, at least 3 years out, sometimes 5 years out when we're talking about facilities and those types of things. And so building operational efficiencies and long-term stability, that might look like switching out all of our lights to LED lights. That costs money to do. However, it also reduces our energy consumption in a building by somewhere up to the nature of 15%. And when we were talking about thousands of dollars a month in electrical bills, that's a significant money. And so we look at long-term return on investment as well, and that's an important process in us. We don't want to just cut kind of willy-nilly right there, because then that puts us in a downward spiral. And so that's what we did. We put together a proposed budget. We put that in front of a budget committee. We had a full budget committee at our last board meeting and budget committee meeting. They approved that budget. That approved budget is now going to go to the board at their June meeting, and that's coming up the second week of June. And at that point, the board will likely adopt that and appropriate that budget. So our budget process is toward the end of that lengthy thing that started in February. Actually started planning in late last fall, but we're in pretty good shape, and I'm looking forward to serving the Estacada School District with that budget next year.
Awesome. And again, as you can tell, we're so lucky to have Scott a part of our team, and the ability to communicate that in a way for people to understand is such a great strength. And,
Thank you.
you know, our school district is super lucky to have someone so skilled and so experienced to kind of help us and what the state is experiencing when it comes to tough economic and financial times. As Scott talked about, you know, funding the classroom first is our big priority. And we're very proud right now to be able to say, both to our community and internally to our employees, that while you read about Portland Public and Salem Kaiser, you know, reducing 160 teachers and those kind of things, at this point, we don't think we're going to be reducing any teachers from this budget experience and through our reductions. As we talked about, and some community members asked some great questions in this Facebook Live about food banks and social workers, you know, we've really kind of had to insulate ourselves on what are the things we need to do versus what are the things that are nice to have or nice to do. And so we've been able to really prioritize and still be able to fully fund the great work that's happening inside the classroom. And while I'm not saying we're not going to have a social worker, those are the things that we're working on right now, is to make sure that we're prioritizing students in special education, making sure we're keeping our class sizes down. You know, Scott very eloquently talked about thousands of dollars for our electric bill. Our last month's electric bill was $38,000. You know, that's the cost of a paraeducator every single month just to pay our inefficient electricity that we have from our 1950s and 1960s building. And so we're going to need to chip away at that with LED lighting and other upgrades and those types of things. But these are things that we need to continue to prioritize to make sure that our buildings where our kids come every single day are safe, warm, and dry. And so that's going to continue to be a priority for us as well. So there is our proposed budget for next year. I hope that you were able to see and learn and take away that we're in a much stronger financial position than many of our neighboring school districts and other school districts around the state of Oregon. But I also hope you saw that just based on the economic times and the way inflation is going and the way prices are increasing, that we are experiencing some of the same strains that other school districts are experiencing, with costs rising greater than the taxpayer dollars that we're receiving. And so we're trying our best to prioritize the things that are most important and invest in those things so that the Estacada School District can continue to thrive even in tough economic times. So thank you again, Scott. Very grateful for that. And at this point, Maggie, maybe this is an opportunity for community questions so that we can transparently and honestly answer them. And Scott can help me with some of these questions.
Yeah, we have a few more questions. Our first question from Christy: is there plans to initiate a new bond ask as we talk about capacity pressures and budget pressures? What does that look like?
Yes, well, we need a bond in probably the worst way. There is no doubt about it. We are still kind of circling what a successful bond package looks like. You know, we've tried we're 0 for our last 3 bond attempts. We tried a middle of the road bond and didn't have community support. We tried a cheaper bond and didn't have community support in 2016. And we tried a very big bond, kind of a one-size-fix-everything bond to try to, let's invest in it now and we'll leave you alone for the next 30 years. And that obviously didn't have success either. And so we're trying to figure out what is the appetite for our community that they would be willing to support with additional tax dollars. And we just have not found that sweet spot yet. We're not giving up. We're trying to listen to our community. We know that with the way economics is, increasing taxes is hard on our families and on our community. And we understand that. We know how difficult things are right now. So we're trying to be mindful of that while still trying to advocate for our kids and our community and ensuring that they have the same competitive, great educational space that other kids in other school districts get to experience each and every single day. So we're still not confident in what that looks like, but we are working on it behind the scenes, and we're trying to find what would be a successful tactic, strategy, and approach to get our community to get across that finish line to invest in our community school districts. But we're working on it, and it's a question that we're asking ourselves, it seems like regularly as well, is what does it look like?
Our next question, and Scott, feel free to chip in here. How does a 30% growth in students only equate to a 7% increase in state funding, and is that normal? And when I was looking at it, it looks like that 30% growth in students was over the past 20 years, whereas the 7% growth in the state school fund is just for this upcoming school year.
Yes, that is correct, and thank you for that question. That 7% is actually based on two numbers. About 3 percentage points of that 7 roughly is due to growth, and that's year-over-year growth. So that's student growth that's coming in. We're in a little bit of a slowing pattern with that student growth. Actually, demographics nationwide have us in a bit of a baby bust with kindergarten students, kindergarten students entering in last year. Nationwide and statewide was lower. It was one of our lower entering numbers of classes, and we're going to see that for about 2 more years, I think, from that. So our growth in student population outside of the incoming students that are coming in by moving here is actually going to be flattening out a little bit. But then the balance of that, so about 4%, probably about 4.5% is what's called the roll-up that the state school fund experiences in the second year of the biennium. And so that amount of money is kind of meant to cover those increased staffing costs. But again, that's 4% there with a little bit of growth, maybe at 3% percentage points. That puts that state school fund level at about 7%.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next question, I'm going to summarize just a little bit for the sake of time, but we're leaving the question there. But is Estacada increasing in students because the district is that awesome, or is it because this is where affordable housing is existing? Can we really create causation there? And then the second question in this comment was, it's also disappointing to see our district compare this district to other districts when it comes to the staffing, and creates kind of a negative comparison to those other districts. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to comment on that.
Yeah, sure, you bet. I'll start with the first one first. And that is, yes, I believe both things are true. I think that the housing that is being built is affordable for young families. I think, in fact, I know for a fact that many families are moving to this community because of the Estacada School District. We continue to see families who are served by special education leave their prior districts and come to ours because of our inclusive practices model. If I had a child served by special education, this is the place I'd want my kid to be educated as well. And so yes is the answer to all of that question. One of the first things young families do when they move or are looking for prospective neighborhoods to move their family and raise their kids is, what are the school rankings? And you can see all of those on real estate websites. And so good schools does help impact families' final decisions to choose to move into a neighborhood or into a new house. And so schools do absolutely play a role inside that process, but I think all of the things are impacted. People move closer to their jobs, to their work sites, all of the above. And so, but having good schools is certainly a help. And I think it's also important that in today's world of school choice, families could also be moving to this neighborhood and then sending their kids to charter school or private school. And so the fact that we're seeing growth is also a statistical indication that people are moving into our communities and sending their kids to our school districts. And we're grateful for that choice, and we work very hard to keep and retain the students who are still inside our schools. And we've been extremely successful in being able to do that. In fact, even this year, while the growth is flattening, Estacada is still growing. And that is different than most other school districts in our county and in our region and in the state as well. In terms of comparisons, a little bit of it is just for fun or just for sports. You know, we're always competing with different things, and public education in today's world has to compete. We have to tell our story. We have to let people know how we're doing. And of course, the state compares our numbers to other schools in the state. Our athletic teams are compared in every single event, as there literally is a scoreboard. And when it comes to academics and when it comes to enrollment and when it comes to those things, there's a scoreboard on us as well. And so it is very important that we're out there telling our story, both of how we're doing and how we're doing in comparison to many other places. But sometimes it's just for fun too. I like to compete and I like to have fun putting ourselves against other communities. And for the most part, I think people enjoy that as well. But you know, if that's something that definitely, you know, offends you or doesn't make you feel great about that, I apologize for that. But at the end of the day, there is a scoreboard. And when it comes to state testing, when it comes to so many other things, we are absolutely compared to other schools. And we know a lot of families in our traditional past, our scores have not been very good, and families have moved out of the Estacada schools to attend the beautiful brand new Sandy High School, or to go to a different school district that appears to be thriving more, like the new Nelson High School in the North Clackamas School District, which are all great people. And by the way, I am great friends with all of the superintendents of Clackamas County. We work very well together. We have a ton of fun together in terms of talking about different things, and we work and collaborate very closely together. So when I'm saying these things, it's more for fun, but you're also naive if you don't think we're not being compared against each other all of the time.
Our next question, and I'll jump in on this one from Kelsey, for upcoming kindergarten class, what are the class sizes looking like? And I will say, regardless of the budget constraint, we are committed to a 25-to-1
Yep.
classroom ratio at the elementary level. So that means 25 kids to one teacher, 30-to-1 at the secondary level. But I also want to put a plug in, if you have an incoming kindergartner that you have not registered yet, please get them registered. It really helps us predict and hire the right amount of teachers to keep that staffing ratio at
Yeah.
that 25-to-1.
Yeah, in fact, kindergarten numbers right now actually look surprisingly very good. As Scott communicated, the trend of the birth rate is down considerably, and these would be COVID age type kids where the birth rate was considerably down. That isn't necessarily the case in Estacada. And while we're seeing this current kindergarten class is lower than the last two kindergarten classes, we're actually seeing right now a boom in kindergarten. Right now, we currently have 98 kindergartners registered for next year. And I'm just going to share with you my unscientific science of how we try to plan for staffing levels for incoming kindergarten classes. But during the kindergarten roundup, which occurred 2 weeks ago, we typically count how many families and kids show up and register to that, and then we double it. And that's how we know how many families what we think are going to show up on the first day of kindergarten. We want to make sure we have teachers ready to go and keep our class sizes at a controllable level to be able to support that on day one. And so for 98 kids, you can do the math with me. If we doubled that, that's 180 kindergartners that we're planning to come in for next year. Now, I don't think it'll be 180. I think it'll be closer to 140 or 150, but that's still giant. And that shows indication that we're going to continue to grow. And like Maggie talked about, the more kids we have in our district means the more money of tax dollars that will come our way. And so we will absolutely hire people to make sure those class sizes stay within 25 students per teacher, and we'll be ready to go with that. But again, parents are continuing to choose to send their kids to the Estacada School District. We're grateful for that, and we're ready to handle that in any way that we possibly can with the facilities that we have.
Can you share what the 4 FTE positions were, whether it's teachers, support staff, et cetera?
Sure. It's not teachers, as we communicated before, and it is particularly support staff. Out of respect to them, I'm not going to name the people or the positions, because these are obviously very sensitive conversations. But what I can tell you is all of the people who we are reducing in our workforce, they have been notified, they're aware of it, and we're happy to support them as they land successfully in their next professional location, wherever that is.
When it comes to a bond, a lot of people only vote during presidential elections. Would we have a higher voter turnout during that time frame?
Yes, you're absolutely correct about that. And that is a very typically a high percentage voter turnout time. Unfortunately for us, the last several presidential elections have been very polarized and very heated. And we've seen both Democrats show up, and if you're a Democrat or Republican, you'll know that Democrats typically vote in favor of public education, and conservative Republicans typically do not. And because of the energy and the polarization around the last 2 presidential elections, we have seen more conservative Republicans show up to vote in our community, which ultimately is also a very anti-tax platform. And so we've actually been penalized for going out in presidential elections when it comes to that aspect. But again, at the end of the day, it's a bigger community conversation we need to have. And when we feel like our community's ready, being that a presidential election or an off-term election, we'll go once we feel like our community is ready to support and we have those votes in our favor. But at this time, we're just not there yet.
2 more questions, and then that is it for the evening. One from Aaron: does the state ever step in and force a bond or taxes for a bond if it's absolutely necessary? And I would just say the old adage, no taxation without representation, applies. That wouldn't be something that could happen. But what we will say is that Superintendent Carpenter and our district had some conversations at the state level asking for some consideration around different funding for school facilities, as we see districts like Estacada, where there's maybe a lower income population, really fall behind what other districts with more affluent communities are able to provide for their kids. So hopefully we will see some change, but that is slow progress.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's just the way that the state of Oregon is. Idaho, Texas, I believe Utah, the state has carved out money that goes to schools to do building construction, infrastructure, rejuvenation, some of those things. Oregon is just not one of those where they carve out specific monies for us to upgrade our facilities or to modernize our facilities. And so the only way that Oregon allows us to achieve that type of funding is through the voter in that place. And by the way, I personally agree with that. I don't want to do anything that doesn't have the people's support or the people's voice inside of that. I do think that that's an opportunity that we cherish and that we value. And it's just our responsibility to tell our story differently, to tell our story better, and to let our community better understand that a thriving school district equals a thriving community. And if you show me a thriving community, I'll point to you a thriving school district. And we're codependent upon each other and what that success looks like. And we just haven't been able to convince or change the minds of enough residents here. And by the way, that's not the city limits. We win the city limits every time we go out for a bond. It's people on the outskirts of our community who have been the toughest to turn. And, you know, as you see the sign, Estacada has 5,000 people in our city limits, but our voter base is about 25,000 people. So if you think about the Redland community who are on the outskirts of Oregon City, if you think about the Eagle Creek community who are on the outskirts of Sandy, a lot of those communities, they drive to Sandy, Fred Meyers to do their shopping, or the Redland community or Springwater community drives to Oregon City to do their shopping. They literally never come to Estacada. And so it's a big challenge for us to really convince them to invest in a school and in a community that they don't actually associate as their community. And that's the biggest challenge for us. When it comes to the city limits or people who are engaged in our school district, we overwhelmingly win in that category. It's outside the city limits, which is our biggest challenge. And it's difficult to reach them and go through that process. And so that's just a little bit of truth behind the politics of areas that we need to strengthen. And that's a very difficult task when you are trying to engage people who are not engaged in our community.
Our next question is, would the district consider doing a survey specifically to ask students and parents how they feel about the inclusive practices model?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, we do ask that question in different ways when it comes to how kids treat each other, what the overall environment feels like in there. And so we do get those results, and we ask for it more from an experience perspective than the actual perspective. And my reason for that is if I asked a third grader, what do you think about inclusive practices, they wouldn't even understand what that meant. That's an adult-driven word, and it's a methodology that we do to include all kids into our classrooms and into the opportunity. Inclusive practices, though, is extremely successful for us. We just celebrated the highest on-time graduation rates, #1 in the entire state of Oregon, for students being served in special education. Before we became an inclusive practices school district, we were on the watch list, we were red flagged, our funding was being potentially taken by the state of Oregon. The state was looking to intervene in some of our special education practices. Things were not healthy in our school district. And so by allowing students to access the classroom to the best of their ability, I mean, just because we use the word inclusive does not mean that a student who's not ready to be in the classroom is just shoved in there all day, every day. You know, we work through the processes. We have great people who work with some of our most complex and challenging students. And we're actually getting better at this work as we do it. But at the end of the day, all students are benefiting from this experience, and our test scores, our engagement scores, not just the survey, but the actual data that matters most, and that's learning and on-time graduation is showing that we have changed who we are as a school district, and we're reaping the benefits of that process. I also won't say that it's not hard. It's extremely difficult. It's also extremely expensive. And every day is a different day, and we try our best to accommodate each and every single kid's needs. And I think we do that to the best of our ability. But we are not perfect, and we have bad days, and things don't go the way we always want them to. But it's our mindset to try again tomorrow and hope the next day gets better.
All right, that is all of our questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for engaging in conversation, for being brave enough to ask questions that other people might have, and for holding us accountable. We appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to be so involved and so invested into this great school district. We're very proud of what we're doing, and we can't do it without you. And so please come again, please ask those questions, and we're excited to continue to team up together to make this the best place we can possibly be. Have a great night, and thanks again for coming on such a busy spring day. Have a great day.